There's some problems here. Sorry, big time.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
Welcome to TYT. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian, and we have a jam-packed show ahead for you today. In the second hour, when Cenk Uygur joins us, we will be talking about what's currently developing and kind of blowing up all over the internet. If you haven't noticed, there's just this big rift among conservative media figures in regard to the Charlie Kirk assassination, whether or not questions should be asked, whether or not the FBI should be trusted. It's just a massive story that's kind of impossible to ignore, but since it's currently developing as we speak, we'll have that for you in the second hour and we'll tell you all the details as we know them. Later, we'll also discuss the GOP healthcare proposal that's supposed to essentially compete against what Democrats want, which is an extension to the Affordable Care Act subsidies to keep premiums low. They haven't put a lot of thought behind it, to be honest with you, and we'll give you the details of that. At the top of the show, I'll give you the latest on what very clearly is shaping up to be a regime change operation. I don't know if it's gonna become a war with Venezuela, but the Trump administration has escalated things considerably since the last time we've spoken about it. And so there's a lot to get to. So I don't wanna waste any more time. Just want to encourage you to like and share the stream. If you're watching us live, Candace Owens is live right now, so you probably aren't. If you are, do us a favor, help us in what the kids like to refer to as the algo, and help spread the message of TYT. You can also become a member by going to tyt.com/join. All right, let's talk about Venezuela.
But these are stone cold murderers. But every time we knock out a boat, we save 25,000 American lives.
So would you consider doing something similar with Mexico and Colombia that are even more responsible for fentanyl trafficking into the US?
Sure, I would.
Well, the Trump administration has ratcheted up its one-sided war and seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. Great. Even though it was a sanctioned tanker, Bloomberg is reporting that our government is being dishonest. They're lying and telling us otherwise. The US conducted a judicial enforcement action on a stateless vessel that was last docked in Venezuela, according to a senior Trump administration official. Oil prices have already gone up as a result. Isn't that great? International oil prices moved higher on news of the seizure, with Brent crude climbing as much as 0.8% in London trading. Now, why would that happen? Well, because we're living in a global oil market, of course, where less global supply means prices are obviously gonna go up. And the Trump administration's actions will make it harder for Venezuela to export its oil, especially since other oil shippers will now be more reluctant to load its cargo, according to Bloomberg. Now, George Leon, head of geopolitical analysis at Rystad Energy, told Bloomberg that, quote, "The US seizing a Venezuelan tanker is a clear escalation from financial sanctions to physical interdiction. It raises the stakes for Caracas and anyone facilitating its exports. This kind of action adds a geopolitical floor to prices. Even modest volumes can move sentiment when the risk is about sea lanes and state-to-state escalation." And keep in mind, this is all happening when we're already in an inflationary economic environment. So inflation is up again at 3%, at a time, by the way, when unemployment is also rising, which means that we are dealing with possible stagflation already. But nonetheless, the serious escalation comes on the heels of the United States military flying 2 fighter jets into the Gulf of Venezuela on Tuesday. So this is the closest that the US military has gotten to the coast. And we're literally talking about a body of water that's surrounded by Venezuelan territory on 3 sides. But the military dishonestly told the Associated Press that it was just a routine training flight. In addition to the escalatory measures, President Trump continues to say that he is not willing to rule out a ground invasion in what is obviously a regime change war his administration is currently plotting. As we all know, Trump wants us to all believe that the war on Venezuela is about protecting Americans from narco traffickers, which is an amazing lie, because during a recent interview with Politico, well, Trump was asked why he decided to pardon the former Honduran president who trafficked tons of cocaine into the United States. Take a look.
You pardoned former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez and let him out of prison, even though he was convicted in a massive international drug trafficking scheme. How is that zero tolerance on drug trafficking?
Well, I don't know him, and I know very little about him, other than people said it was like a Obama-Biden type setup where he was set up. He was the president of the country. The country deals in drugs like probably you could say that about every country. And because he was the president, they gave him like 45 years in prison. And there are many people fighting for Honduras, very good people that I know, and they think he was treated horribly, and they asked me to do it, and I said, I'll do it.
You can say that about every country's engaging in drug trafficking, but Venezuela is the one country that Trump has decided to target because they're the narco terrorists. And look, if we're to take what Trump is saying at face value, that means that people in his administration basically manipulate him by saying that an actual narco trafficker was treated unfairly by Trump's political opponents. And he makes pardoning decisions without even bothering to probe into the very people he's looking to pardon. Like, isn't that insane? But also, what the hell could possibly be more unfair than slaughtering fishing boats full of people simply based on a suspicion that they're narco traffickers? Hernandez was sentenced to 45 years in prison for good reason. And for all the people who have bought into the ridiculous fear-mongering about how Venezuela's role in the cocaine drug trade is worth slaughtering innocent people, keep this in mind. Prosecutors maintain that Hernandez's government set up Honduras to serve as a pivotal waypoint or superhighway of cocaine coming from South American nations, including Colombia and Venezuela. And by the way, just pause for a second. When I say fishing boats full of innocent people, I actually believe in what our judicial system maintains, that people are innocent until proven guilty. Those fishing boats were full of people who never had a minute, who never had an opportunity to make a case. There was no due process, there was no evidence presented whatsoever. Some of the survivors of those Venezuelan fishing boat strikes were allowed to just go back to their country with no problem. If they're such dangerous narco terrorists, why would the Trump administration just willy-nilly let them go back to their own countries? Now, Hernandez also accepted $1 million from former Mexican cartel kingpin El Chapo in 2013 while successfully running for his first Honduran presidential term. It turns out he was using money from the drug trade to accumulate power, political power for himself. Now, he was found guilty following a 3-week trial, meaning there was due process in that case. But according to Trump, he was treated unfairly by Joe Biden? Right. Here's more from Trump.
Do you think that could send the wrong message to drug dealers?
No, I don't think so. Look, I think when you weaponize government, they've weaponized their government just like they did over here. I'm one of the people that survived, but they weaponized the government. We had the most weaponized government. Our election was rigged. They went after me. I was impeached twice. I was indicted. They indicted me. I came out good. Here we are in the White House. Things are looking nice.
It is a problem when the country is led by an incurious bozo who's easily manipulated by people who exploit his unending grievances to get what they want. And that's if we take Trump's reasoning for pardoning Juan Orlando Hernandez at face value. But there likely are other reasons for why Trump made that decision. Now, Trump has issued more than 2,000 pardons since taking office for his second term. That is 10 times the number of people he pardoned in the entirety of his first term. And it looks like maybe corruption has a lot to do with it. In fact, a former nursing home executive who was set to report to prison for tax crimes found himself off the hook after his mother attended a $1 million fundraiser for Trump that promised face-to-face access with the president. Weird, that's so weird, because when it came to Hunter Biden, I thought his tax crimes were worthy of like life in prison. Anyway, let's get back to the guy that Trump pardoned though. The curiously timed pardon spared Paul Walzak from having to pay nearly $4.4 million in restitution and from reporting to prison for an 18-month sentence that had been handed down just 12 days earlier. But there are other examples I can give you, like the CEO of the failed EV truck company Nikola, a Utah billionaire named Trevor Milton, who received a full pardon after being convicted for defrauding investors. It was surely just a coincidence that Trevor Milton and his wife gave almost $1 million each to a Trump-backing super PAC less than a month before the 2024 election. I think there would be a little more respect toward our institutions and our government if we were led by people who stopped lying to us, who stopped being as dishonest as the Trump administration is being in regard to their reasonings and their motives for why they are edging closer and closer to a hot war with Venezuela. You can have issues with how Venezuela is governed, I certainly do. You can dislike the Venezuelan regime, which I certainly have issues with, but the idea that our soldiers should engage in a costly war with Venezuela because our national security is threatened by their narco-terrorists is laughable. It's just not true. And the reason why you just heard, Dasha from Politico ask Donald Trump, well, the fentanyl's coming from China and Mexico. Are you considering taking any action against that? Is because that's where the real issue is rooted in, right? Like that's where the fentanyl is coming from. It's coming from China, it's smuggled through from Mexico. And the fentanyl is what is leading to the massive number of overdose deaths in this country. Now, I don't want war with Mexico either, but my point here is to say that he is trying to drag the United States into a war under a false premise. And we've been here, we've done that before. And let's just be a little bit smarter. Let's actually push back for once instead of beating the war drums because our precious government decided to lie to us again about their motivations. I think this is really about oil, and I think that it's for ideological purposes as well. Trump wants regime change in Venezuela. Marco Rubio certainly wants regime change in Venezuela. And more importantly, a powerful group of voters in South Florida who people like Marco Rubio certainly want to appeal to, possibly for a future presidential run, have a lot more sway than they should have. I'm sorry to all the Cubans and Venezuelans in South Florida. My husband's Cuban, my in-laws are Cuban, and I love them to death. Okay, Americans shouldn't have to pay for or risk their lives for your pet project. You got issues with a foreign country? That's on you. You're an American. Either you start seeing yourself as an American who prioritizes this country, or maybe consider a different country. And I'm being serious about that. We are $38 trillion in debt. The idea that we're gonna start a new war with freaking Venezuela under false pretenses because there's a community of people in South Florida who really don't like him in Cuba is insane. But here we are, that's what we're dealing with. By the way, does that mean that I'm anti-Cuban now because I don't want to go to war with Venezuela and I'm being critical about our government's actions toward Venezuela? No. And maybe the Israelis should keep that in mind. All right, let's move on to our next story and then we'll take a break. This one, we'll get through it quick because it's more of the same, but I'm gonna give you some resources you can rely on if you happen to be an evangelical Christian and you just wanna know a little more about your church and whether or not your pastor has been propagandized to propagandize you. So let's get into it. A group of more than 1,000 American Christian Zionist pastors and some influencers included as well spent a week in Israel on an all expenses paid trip funded by the Israeli Foreign Ministry. Now, why would they do that? Why? Why would they take that trip? You know why. We all know why. But in case you're still confused, Mike Evans, the evangelical pastor who helped organize this trip in the first place, will enlighten you, okay? So he told the Christian Broadcasting Network the following, Quote, "This is the first time in history that the state of Israel has officially partnered with 1,000 strategic pastors to commission them as ambassadors to combat anti-Semitism and reach the youth of their generation." So they're just saying it out loud. So this isn't really about combating anti-Semitism. Let's put that aside. This is really about the fact that you have younger conservatives in this country really questioning the US alliance to Israel, given everything that's been live streamed over the last 2 years, given all the money that the US political system has funneled over to the Israeli government, given the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is pushing for a 20-year deal in which the United States would send more and more military aid to Israel for 2 decades straight. That's how long that, I would be 60 years old by the time that deal is done with. That is insane, right? So what they're trying to do here is strategically target various evangelical churches where pastors have deluded themselves into thinking that the only way they could be considered good Christians is if they support a foreign country, a nation state, and just use them to propagandize their parishioners, I should say, their parishioners. And so it's very brazen. And what I love about this is its brazenness, because it allows us to know exactly what's going on. It allows us to point to who funded this. It's the Israeli Foreign Ministry, what their goals are, what their strategy is. The real question is which churches are included in this project. And we're gonna get to that in just a minute. So if you're curious what kind of speeches were given at this event, the guy who recently had a clandestine meeting, a secret meeting with a convicted traitor to the United States and Israel, Mike Huckabee, he gave a speech, unsurprisingly, and here's what he had to say.
That this is the land that God gave to the Jewish people. And he said, he will bless those who bless Israel, but he will curse those who curse Israel.
Right. So that's the kind of messaging that they want to propagate all throughout the United States through these churches. So the Israeli Foreign Ministry has spent millions on propaganda campaigns targeting evangelical churches in the US, and it is being called something specific. It's being called the largest Christian church geofencing campaign in US history, a project that was revealed by a federal filing under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. So at least in this case, there's a filing and there's some disclosure about the foreign influence of this program. Now remember, churches are tax exempt, and tax exemption means that you're not supposed to use your churches for political activism. A lot of churches do it anyway. I'm sure that in this case, they can make an argument that no, it is our religious belief that the United States should constantly bow down to a foreign country, to the nation state of Israel, no matter what. And maybe they'll get off on that. I mean, I don't think anyone will even probe this. But nonetheless, I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who are curious which churches are involved. And Netanyahu did address the pastors and told them the following. Stand up and be counted, tell the truth. He doesn't want them to tell the truth. They don't even care for the truth, to be fair. Speak to young people, speak up to be counted. I'm counting on you, and I know you'll do what has to be done. That's what our destiny calls for. So, let's talk about who's involved in this. We're talking about 1,000 pastors in the United States. We're talking about a ton of churches all across the country. And obviously I can't go through them all. But there is one account, and I did retweet this if you wanna go to my Twitter account and you can check it out. But if you wanna look it up yourself, Gen X Girl has incredibly compiled the list of the very churches that were included in this summit. Now, I wanna be very clear. Everyone in this country is free to believe what they want to believe. They're free to say what they feel to be true, whatever they want to say. This list is meant to inform people who might be going to these churches, but don't know that their pastor took this trip to Israel to basically come back to the United States and engage in propaganda on behalf of a foreign country. I think parishioners deserve to know that. No, I'm sure a lot of parishioners are totally fine with it, and that's great. But for all the young conservatives out there, for all the young Christians out there who might be going to these churches, I think you should know. And if you do have a problem with it and you want to bring it up to your pastor and have a polite and civil debate about it, that's great. But it should end there. This is, again, for your information. Because I think it is wrong for any foreign country to engage in these like strategic missions to misinform the public, again, on behalf of a foreign country. Anyway, good work by Gen X Girl. Please check her out because she does a lot of investigating on various issues and she shows her receipts, so check that out. For now, we gotta take a quick break. When we come back for the second segment, we'll talk a little bit about Tucker Carlson's appearance on Theo because they did discuss Israel, but they discussed a lot of other things as well, government corruption. My favorite part was the conversation on Bari Weiss. Tucker went scorched earth on that. So come back, we've got that and more coming right up. What's up, everyone? Welcome to our first social break. I really hope my in-laws aren't watching this right now, but I did enjoy this comment from Green New Dealer Dragon. Fidel Castro won. Cuban Americans need to stop crying. Look, a lot of Cuban Americans did lose everything in the revolution, and they are super bitter and salty about it. But you're in America now, okay? You got amnesty. You got amnesty in the best country in the world. So celebrate that, see yourself as an American, and like, don't be so obsessed with something that literally happened many, many decades ago. I know that's like a hard thing for people to accept. I mean, obviously, what happened to Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, I care about it deeply. I talked about it on the show. I'm not obsessing about it constantly and demanding that my government, expend as many of their resources as possible to go after Azerbaijan. Although I wouldn't be against it. No, I'm just kidding, I'm kidding. All right, let's go to our new members. We've got David Baldassaro, welcome. I hope you're enjoying the show. We also have Venom Emilio. All right, welcome to the show, welcome new members. In our member section, we have Ali we have Ali. I don't want to butcher your last name. Hey everyone, Miss JR, missed John surgery yesterday, but I'm here now, peeps. All right, I hope you missed me too. We've got I Love Etna, who's been a member for 2 months. Thanks for being honest. I learn new things every time I see your show. Thank you for keeping an open mind and always feel free to double check what I'm saying. I never have a problem with that. And if I get something wrong, as sometimes I do, write in, let me know, because I don't want to perpetuate false information. A friend of mine, Sean, does that often during the show, and I always appreciate it. We've got NorCal Girl who says, does that include non-denominational churches? I hope not. These are evangelical churches for the most part. I think all of them are evangelical churches, in fact. I don't go to church anymore, but my best friend does, and I have pretty good memories from going there in the past. Yeah, and by the way, I mean, it's okay to ask questions. Like if you're going to church and you love your church, but you're wondering whether or not your pastor was part of this summit, it's okay to ask your pastor. You should have a comfortable relationship with your pastor. You should be able to trust that individual. All right, let's keep going. We've got Kevin Shea who says, Wednesday is leg day at the gym. I used to hate it. I'm not going as far as saying I like it, but no longer hate it. All right, Kevin, that was random, but I accept it. I will allow it. Thank you for writing in. In fact, later in the show, we're gonna talk about how the transportation secretary's plot to make air travel better. It includes a plan to add gyms at airports, which no one asked for that. Like, can we just make sure that flights run on time and like I'm not gonna be rejected at the gate when there's still 20 minutes before the flight takes off? Can we do that maybe? Thanks. Let's get back to the show. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Kieran writes in and says, hey, Anna, is that a new dress? Semi-new. It looks wonderful, thank you. But here's the real important part. Can you please interview Gary Stevenson on the topic of wealth inequality? I think it's becoming a huge issue for everyone, especially Gen Z. Actually, I have seen a little bit of Stevenson, and I would be interested in interviewing him. So maybe we can do that on a Wednesday show, first hour. So we'll work on that. So thank you for the comment, and I appreciate the super chat. All right, well, why don't we get to our next story?
And you also got anti-Semite of the year, or you got?
Did I win?
No, I don't. You also got nominated for anti-Semite of the year.
I think it is immoral to judge people on qualities they can't control that they're born with. I don't think that people are guilty by virtue of their blood. That's why I disagree with the Netanyahu cabinet. They believe the Palestinians are subhuman because they're Palestinian. I know Anna too. They not only are not anti-Semites, they think anti-Semitism is immoral.
That's right, anti-Semitism, just like racism, just like sexism, just like homophobia, just like Islamophobia is wrong. It is immoral. We should be able to judge individuals based on the behavior that they themselves engage in, but the idea of judging an entire population of people based on immutable, traits is insane, immoral, and I've always rejected that. And I'm happy to hear that Tucker Carlson does as well. Now, during this conversation on Theo Von's podcast, there were a lot of interesting points, and I appreciated Theo Von in particular, because look, Theo Von, I look at him as normie when it comes to the political world. He's not a politico, he's not steeped in what we talk about every day on the show, or any political show for that matter. But his reaction to what's been happening in Gaza and the Middle East was very much real and came from a place of vulnerability. And I noticed that when he recently had an appearance on Joe Rogan's show, he wanted to talk about it. He really wanted to flesh out what's going on. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, Rogan didn't really want to get into that conversation at all and kept interrupting and pivoting and whatever. I was happy to see that he was able to engage in this conversation with Tucker Carlson, and I think that there were moments worthy of highlighting because of the candor, because of what they were saying. So it's especially important when it comes to heavy topics like, genocide. Let's take a look.
I think I was watching some of the Gaza stuff and I kept thinking well, surely America will come in at some point and help.
And stop this.
Right, that was my thought.
Especially since when you say genocide, you're not guessing. It's not like some propaganda term. It's the definition. And we know that not just from the video of its victims, but from the testimony of the people perpetrating it. Smotrich, Ben-Gvir. Look, we need to get them out.
Let me see.
These are people who were born there.
I just want to see if that's.
It's insane.
It is insane. And I'm so tired of being made out to be the crazy one or the hateful one and the bigoted one or the anti-Semitic. I'm not anti-Semitic at all. No, I mean, most of the people who are targeted as so-called anti-Semites right now are specifically being critical of a foreign country. And so when you claim that it's anti-Semitic to be critical of the IDF's actions in Gaza, of the Israeli settlers' actions in the West Bank, what you're essentially communicating to the world is that engaging in barbarism, engaging in mass slaughter is part of the Jewish identity, which it's not. Okay, the claim itself is disgusting and anti-Semitic. And again, I mean, you're hearing influential, powerful people within the Israeli government just flat out talking about mass extermination. And we're just supposed to ignore that and pretend like it doesn't exist? So the two then went on to play a video of Bezalel Smotrich's gross genocidal speeches, at least one of them. It's a more recent one, and they reacted to it. So let's take a look at that.
The truth is, until the last hostage returns, we shouldn't even give water to the Gaza Strip. For a year and a half, we've been beating the hell out of Hamas. We're breaking Gaza apart, leaving it as a pile of rubble, with total unprecedented destruction in the world, and the world still hasn't stopped us. The aim is to achieve the one and only required outcome: the conquest of Gaza, the annihilation of Hamas, and the return of all the hostages. In one word, victory. So that's their view on it right there, you know?
He's saying we're killing people and leveling the country in order to move the population out. So how is that different from saying there's certain people in my capital city I don't want here, I'm going to put them on trains and move them east? There's no difference. People are being killed and expelled from the place where they were born because of their bloodline.
Yeah.
That, in the world that I grew up in, which is the United States of America, the main lesson, the lesson of World War II, the reason we fought against fascism was we reject that.
I thought that was a powerful moment because of how much, honestly, I resonated with it, because I think what's happened over the last 2 years, just putting aside the carnage in the Middle East and just focusing on the United States, what we project about ourselves on the globe or in the globe. I always thought of our country as, obviously, like, our government's been flawed. We've always had issues. There's no question. We've never been a perfect country. But I always thought that what we were aspiring to as a country, what our Constitution provided us in terms of recognizing humanity, human rights, all of that, I thought, you know what, that's what makes us stand out. When I thought about our role in World War II, like, that gives me so much pride. You know, I see myself as American first and foremost. I'm very, very proud of my Armenian heritage. There's no question about that. But I was born and raised here. And I do have a stake in the game as an American who cares about this country, who wants this country to thrive, who wants the people of this country to thrive, regardless of their political identity. Even if you despise me, even if you're like on the far right or even on the left and you think I'm a terrible person, I want you to thrive. People in this country should live good lives, and they should have things in their lives that they can look forward to. And I think a lot of people are struggling right now. And what really bothers me is that as there is so much suffering in our own country, our government time and time again has shown us that we are on the back burner as they prioritize foreign policy that does not benefit the American people. And on top of that, I feel embarrassed by what our government is greenlighting, funding, arming, and engaging in. That's not the identity of the United States that I was raised to believe we have. Again, I am not at all belittling or minimizing dark things that have happened in this nation's history. We have never been perfect. But I just thought that we would be better than this. And I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by our leaders bowing their heads to a foreign country and to foreign leaders. I'm embarrassed by how easily they're bought and corrupted. And I'm embarrassed that so many people just don't see Muslims as human. I mean, like, the dehumanization propaganda toward Muslims in this country, I didn't realize just how effective it was. And so I deluded myself into thinking, well, if I just do more debates and I just try to inform people more, maybe I change my style, maybe I change my tone, maybe I find a different way to reach people. It's just they need to know the information. I gotta get them the information. No, for some people, they know what's happening. And that is so hard for me to accept, because I think ultimately most people are capable of goodness. But the propaganda in this country runs deep. And when an entire group of people have been dehumanized and they just talk about Palestinians as if they're animals out in the open, not just in the Israeli government, but I see it in the commentary in American media time to time. it disappoints me. It makes me really sad. And I find it really embarrassing. Finally, something that I think is worth pointing out. I'm really happy that Tucker Carlson specifically called out the double standard when it comes to hatred. Let's take a look.
All of a sudden, you've got people in the United States, current United States government, you've got people in our media class, they're all defending this because they agree with it. And then you see people jumping up and being like, Muslims shouldn't have jobs in the United States. And it's like, or in the US government, it's like, how is that better than saying Jews shouldn't have jobs or Christians or Buddhists? It's all the same. That kind of thinking is genocidal. It leads to the genocide we're watching right now in Gaza and to many other genocides. For the fifth time, it's not just Israel, it does this, okay? But this is what we're fighting against.
I could not agree more. Please don't fall prey to any ideology that makes you think an entire group of people based on their religion or their ethnicity, their nationality, whatever it is. Don't ever let anyone convince you to hate an entire group of people. Judge individuals based on their own actions. And there is that double standard. So if you are offended by genuine anti-Semitism, as I am, you should be just as offended at people who engage in Islamophobic rhetoric, in racist actions, because human beings should, again, be treated as individuals. But more importantly, you should do it for yourself in terms of rejecting that kind of ideology. Because I think one of the things that Martin Luther King Jr. said that resonated the most with me, and I hope it resonated with you all as well, is that hatred, you should feel bad for people who are taken over by hatred. Like, those are not happy people. Those are pretty miserable people. So just keep that in mind. I mean, I'm kind of preaching to the choir because I know most people in my audience are not into hating, any group of people based on their identity. But I really appreciated that portion of the conversation on Theo Von's podcast. And I gotta give a shout out to Theo Von because I can tell he's been really wanting to talk about this issue. And Tucker Carlson gave him an opportunity to do that in a way that was open, honest, and candid. All right, let's get to the second part of this discussion because there was more.
We're gonna take someone as stupid and totally non-creative, and literally uninformed. She didn't even know who Assad was. She's an idiot, and we're gonna put her in charge of CBS News. She has to call me the one thing that she is, which is this weird psychology, I have to say. Calling me a hater. I'm a lot of things, a buffoon, a hothead, bad table manners, whatever, fat. I'm not anti-American. That's all I care about.
I wouldn't say fat, maybe holiday chubby, maybe.
Okay, let's just note for the record that holiday chubby is one of my favorite ways of describing someone who's put on a little bit of weight. That was hilarious by Theo Von. But that conversation had to do with Bari Weiss. And to be quite frank, Tucker Carlson went scorched earth on Bari Weiss, who is now the head of news over at CBS after David Ellison, the CEO of Skydance, not Sundance, Skydance, okay, bought Paramount. I always mix up the two. Anyway, let's watch Tucker go scorched earth.
Bari Weiss has no experience in journalism at all. She's never committed, she's an opinion writer or whatever for the New York Times or something. She's not a journalist, never written a freaking story in her life. And she's dumb, she doesn't know anything. So that's fine, lots of dumb people. My dogs are dumb, I don't hold it against them. But for you to ascend to the top of whatever pyramid you think you occupy, and you're not even impressive. How do these people wind up running our biggest institutions? And the reason that's significant is because if you pay close enough attention and you realize that the people running everything are stupid, then you think, well, actually, the system is truly rigged on behalf of people who do not deserve these positions at all. It's not just that I disagree with Bari Weiss or she's calling me names or I'm calling her names or whatever. It's in no fair system and no meritocracy would Bari Weiss rise above secretary. Actually, and I mean that. I've been in this business since Bari Weiss was breastfeeding, okay? There's no world in which Bari Weiss rises to the top of a news network except a rigged world.
So I actually disagree with some of what Tucker said there because I don't think that Bari Weiss is stupid. And as much as I disagree with her Zionist fanatic, and she referred to herself as that, coverage of Israel. I just don't think she's a dumb person. I actually think she's smart. I think that she's strategic. I think that she, did build something, which isn't an easy thing to do with the free press. My issue with Bari Weiss, well, I've got a few issues. Number one, she's one of the people who signed on to the Harper's letter calling for free speech after the New York Times was excoriated for allowing Senator Tom Cotton to write an op-ed in which he was calling for the military to be used against Americans as they were protesting in 2020. She at the time at least, she claimed that she was a big believer in free speech. I mean, obviously that's not the case, considering the way that her leadership over at CBS has already gone. I mean, there was a story out about how employees at CBS were worried about getting fired. They thought they were on the chopping block, and so they just had a meeting with Bari Weiss, told them about how much they love Israel, and their jobs were safe. And that's an issue. That's an issue. That's a huge issue. Because if you want to do opinion journalism, if you want to do op-eds and columns, and you're putting your cards on the table and it's abundantly clear that you're biased and you intend to engage in biased coverage of a topic, that's fine. But that's not what's happening. So CBS Evening News, for instance, is gonna now have Dokupil as the new anchor, specifically because he is pro-Israel. The coverage for CBS is going to be overwhelmingly pro-Israel because when David Ellison bought CBS, he made it clear that he also wanted to buy the free press because he loved, that Bari Weiss was pro-Israel. He wanted a pro-Israel bent to the news. And that's where the problem is, because we already have an issue with Americans no longer trusting our institutions. And it's not just government institutions, it's also our media, including legacy media, especially legacy media like CBS. And as much as people want to just kind of write this off as like, oh, well, it's just it's a dinosaur, who cares? It was dying anyway. It's legacy media, no one watches it anymore. Well, here's the problem. Legacy media still has the resources necessary to break news, to actually do investigative journalism. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, we rely on investigative journalism to do our jobs. Now, luckily, there are amazing independent outlets like Dropsite News, for instance. Antiwar.com is another example. Like, I love going there to get an anti-war perspective on what's happening with US foreign policy. But at the end of the day, whether you're talking about the New York Times, CBS, CNN, these are the platforms and the outlets that have the resources to hire journalists that do lengthy investigations, which, by the way, doing an investigation in a story does take a long time. And they need to do that in order for the world to be informed about what's going on, for the country to be informed about what's going on, to get accurate information, and to at least have some semblance of muckraking in this country in the journalist field. That has been whittled down considerably since I graduated college, that's for sure. But seeing more and more of these outlets get taken over by clear ideologues, that's a big problem. And let me just tell you, man, I do features for Real Clear Investigations, and it's original reporting, and it takes weeks, if not months, for me to write a single feature. I have a lot of respect for journalists, okay, because their jobs are really hard. They don't do what we do. I'm not saying that what we do is easy, but I'm not breaking stories on this show. I am relying on other journalists in order to have material to comment on and analyze. And so it is actually incredibly sad when you have an ideologue who's not interested in fairness, who's not interested in balance, taking over CBS News. So more and more of these outlets are kind of gone. They've been taken over, and that is sad. It has nothing to do with Bari Weiss being dumb or being untalented. It has everything to do with the fact that she's driven by a specific ideology, and that ideology is going to bleed into the news coverage over at CBS. That's the problem. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, more news for you. Not entirely sure what I want to cover. Not that's for sure. You know what? When we come back, why don't we get into the GOP proposal to reform healthcare?
Tucker Carlson, a terrible friend.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to our social break. Wow, lots of comments. Let's go to Quentin Gilliam, who says, shout out to Anna out there in those debate streets, catching bodies left and right. Get them. Thank you, I appreciate that. Demolition Woman says, my mom and I love you, Anna. We watch every day together. That's so sweet. And we thank you so much for your hard work, or for the hard work you do so diligently to share the truth. Thank you, beautiful. Thank you, I appreciate that. And I would not be able to do this on my own. I hope that's very obvious. I can't tell you guys enough how much I'm grateful for the team here at TYT that supports the stories and the work that we do here on the show. Wouldn't be able to do it without them. I mean, they're incredible. So let's go to MCM6660, who says, Anna, hope you feel better about the Maher interview. You were great. He's a racist Looney Tune. You've been an inspiring advocate for innocence in Gaza. Love from Sydney. Thank you. I'll just leave it at that. Michael Catalano says, mark my words, if Tucker Carlson runs criticizing Israel in 2028 and the Democrats hem and haw and refuse to commit, he is 100% gonna win. Yeah, I agree with that. Totally agree with that. So the wishy-washy Jasmine Crockett type stuff when it comes to Israel, or the Kamala Harris type stuff when it comes to Israel while they're campaigning is not gonna work. It's amazing to me that they haven't realized that yet, especially when it comes to the Democratic side. Like right now, Israel's freaking out because for the first time, the conservative side is starting to be critical of Israel. The left has always been not just critical of Israel, but critical of US foreign policy and the war machine. Libertarians, for the most part, have always been there as well. But when it comes to the right, that's a different story. So it is so depressing to see, again, like this weird hedging, capitulation happening with Democratic lawmakers and Democratic candidates, when on the right, you have people who are speaking pretty clearly about what's going on. Now, to be fair, Tucker Carlson isn't running for anything right now. So if he does, then we'll judge what he says about the issue. All right, let's go to Catch the Junebug, who says, Anna, it's so hard. I wake up and think of Gaza. It continues all day and is the last thing I think about before bed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You make a difference every day, and every day I hope you remind yourself that. I think this week, for the first time, I just really felt, I don't know, just down. And anyway, this isn't therapy hour, so I'm not gonna get into it, but thank you for your comment. And it is hard because I want to believe that, again, most people are good, and if they see innocent people being slaughtered like that or suffering like that, they'd be against it. So when 2 years later, there's still a pretty significant portion of the country totally gung-ho and in favor of what's happening in Gaza, it's just really heartbreaking. All right, Kevin Shea says, I'm starting to turn around on Tucker. He seems to be making more sense since he left Fox. He's definitely unchained, that's for sure. start this segment with a comment from our member Mattman63, who says, Anna, I may not always agree with your point of view, but you still say more that we can see eye to eye on, but we can see eye to eye on more than any of the corporate media. They really should be ashamed of themselves. Yeah, I think we should be a little more privy to the fact that power players, whether it be in government or in the media, seem to have an interest in dividing ordinary Americans, which is why I think it's really important to not cut people out of your life if they vote differently from you and instead engage in conversation. Now, if they're abusing you in some way or making you out to be a bad person and hurting you in some way, that's a different story. But simply having political disagreements should not lead to you purging people from your life. Engage in conversation, because chances are you agree on a lot more than you realize. Anyway, one more story before we go to our second hour with Cenk. I wanted to talk a little bit and give you an update on the efforts to reform healthcare, which really aren't efforts at all. Let's get into it. Republicans have just released their flimsy excuse for healthcare reform after refusing to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies that will now lead to premiums doubling for many Americans. Now that they're set to double, Republicans are offering what I see as a pretty pathetic Band-Aid that really isn't even gonna pass Congress anyway. It's just meant to pay lip service to an issue that a lot of Americans are struggling with, and that's the cost of healthcare. So just to back up a little bit and give you more context, the fight over the Affordable Care Act subsidies took place during the recent government shutdown. Democrats used their leverage in the bill to fund the government by withholding their votes until Republicans agreed to extend the ACA subsidies for 2 years. But Republicans don't really care, and they refused to do so. So we had a 40-day shutdown, and then after the elections took place, Democrats did cave to Republicans. I actually don't have that much of a problem with them caving necessarily, because there were SNAP recipients whose benefits were on the line. I just didn't like the fact that Democrats lied to us and made it seem like, oh no, it's okay. We got promises from Republicans that we're gonna do something and we're gonna vote on the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Well, it looks like they are gonna vote on the Affordable Care Act subsidies, unlikely to pass. I wanna be clear about that. But the Republican Party has decided to come out with their own proposal to compete with the priority of the Democratic Party, which is to just extend the subsidies for 2 years. So let's get into the details of what Republicans are proposing here. So Republican Senator, by the way, let me just note this. If you are under the impression that it's just Democratic voters who are upset about our broken healthcare system, you'd be mistaken. Obviously, Democrats and Republicans alike are furious at the cost of healthcare, especially since you pay a lot only to get your claims rejected by health insurance companies, and it's infuriating. So I think most people are angry for good reason, and even Republican Senator Roger Marshall admitted this last night, saying that this problem was not created overnight. It's not going to be solved overnight. Yes, some people's premiums are going to go up some. They sure are, Roger Marshall. I think that we should take the taxpayer-funded healthcare away from our congressional lawmakers until they actually do something real and substantive about our broken healthcare system. Maybe that'll get them to act, because they live their cushy lives with their government-funded healthcare and their, impunity from any ramifications or consequences from insider trading, which is obviously happening in front of our faces. It's infuriating. But nonetheless, here's what the Republicans are proposing now. So this is a bill or a proposal that was designed by Senators Bill Cassidy and Mike Crapo. I'll be nice and not pronounce it the other way. Here's how the plan will work. The subsidies for the Affordable Care Act are not part of the equation at all in the Republican proposal. However, the money that was once being used for the subsidies would instead be placed into so-called health savings accounts. Those accounts would only be available for bronze level or catastrophic ACA plans. So under the plan, individuals earning less than 700% of the federal poverty level would receive, $1,000 in HSA funding for those between age 18 and 49, and $1,500 for those ages 50 to 64. The senators say it would lower 2027 premiums by 11%. I am not buying that. Now, Republicans are also stating that extending the tax credits would risk inflating insurance premiums when it's actually the opposite. I mean, the whole point of extending the ACA subsidies or the tax credits was to lower the premiums. And I mean, you're about to see it happen right now. A lot of you have already seen it happen right now. Since the tax credits have not been extended, people are already seeing their premiums double. So how are Republicans gonna make that argument? And by the way, let me also say this. It's also an issue that the Affordable Care Act is so flawed that we need to keep extending government tax credits for it to be affordable. So I don't necessarily fully disagree with the Republican Party, but I do disagree with them when they claim that they have better solutions, because they don't, and it doesn't really seem like they care much. So in response, Senator Bernie Sanders explained that the Republican plan is a bust. I mean, I think anyone paying close attention already knows that, but let me give you his arguments. He says that the lower quality health insurance plans that Cassidy and Crapo are encouraging come with outrageously high deductibles of $7,500 and $10,000 for individuals and up to $21,200 for households. I know, but we're gonna get that $1,000 health savings account figure in that's amazing, isn't it? That'll help us pay for all of this. He also says that a family of 4 living in Kansas making $45,000 a year could be forced to pay $4,500 more for surgery after a heart attack than under current law. And finally, he says, and I agree with this, we cannot remain the only major country not to guarantee healthcare as a human right. The function of a rational healthcare system must be to make people well, not to make the wealthy stockholders of big drug and insurance companies even richer. But as much as I agree with Bernie Sanders and the critiques he has toward the flimsy Republican excuse for healthcare reform, our system is so deeply broken, and neither one of the proposals are likely gonna pass in the House. And certainly, neither one of them are gonna pass in the Senate, where you need a majority of 60 votes out of 100 in order to pass any legislation, unless there's a continuing resolution that allows them to do it without the 60 vote requirement. So anyway, the point of this story is that our government doesn't care about us at all. And that's never gonna change unless Americans wake up to the fact that we are just disorganized, divided, based on the way our media frames what's happening in the country, based on the fact that people are less and less willing to have conversations with people on the other side of the political aisle because they're convinced that the other side is evil. But when it comes to ordinary, normal Americans, the only way we're gonna win, the only way we're gonna change the system is if we organize. We used to do that through labor unions. But also, if we're willing to work with people that we might have other disagreements with. Otherwise, we will remain divided and the elite will continue to screw us. So there's that. Anyway, we're gonna take a break. When we come back for the second hour, Cenk Uygur will join me. We'll talk a little bit about this insane, civil war involving Candace Owens, Erika Kirk, the Charlie Kirk assassination. It is an insane story. You don't wanna miss it. We'll be right back.
What contributions to the progressive cause are you most proud of? I mean, I don't have super high aspirations for a singular role that I can play in the movement or anything. I try to present myself as what I think that I am, which is a progressive man who is driven by I think, well-interrogated and well-organized system of values that I try to stay consistent on, and I demonstrate that that's the sort of life that a person can lead and be successful and be happy and all of that. And that should not need to be done, but there are so many people on the right that are trying to push men in the opposite direction that I want to be able to do that. Along the way, if I can get people to care about some topics that they wouldn't necessarily care about, or that for some men they might think that's not a topic that they should be focused on, that's definitely something that I relish doing. And along the way, I mean, we've been able to introduce people to a lot of candidates. That's been a big part of what we've done. Not all of them necessarily got in office. Probably most of them did not. And a lot of them you might not even remember their names. But it was great to be able to provide people the platform where they had the chance of making a difference. Obviously AOC and all that, but there's been a lot of great people along the way.
In the bonus episode for the members, we do some inside baseball. We're gonna look at John's desk. Nice little spaceship here. Nerd. But it is kind of look cool. Who has Legos? Oh no. He's taken apart a keyboard. Who has a mouse pad that's this big? He's got a dog with a nose that you can hang something on. You know what this desk screams to me? Nerd. And that's how we like him. We love Johnny Pie. He's got his own personality like everybody does at TYT. Come meet us all in the bonus episodes. TYT.com/team.
David Sorrell, Nina Turner, Adam Green drop by.
Charlemagne.
Congressman, great to have you. It's great to be with you, Jack.
Your show is a great thing. You're informing people. A lot of the shows that I live on, my CNN, my MSNBC, and even Fox, and any of the other shows, NPR, they are so quick to decide that they know what this building means today.
The one thing that I hate that politicians do, they talk about the people they should be talking to.
Do they have any idea that they're the establishment and that they're hated, or do they not realize that at all?
People are so deeply in their little universe. I think it's very easy to not really question what you're doing.
Voters have a right to ask questions of any nominee, whether they're independent, Republican, or Democrat.
The system is duopoly that suppresses competition.
How is it the year 2024 and we're still like, maybe they'll talk about paid medical? Like how is that like at one level it's like, this is what we're talking about now. You're like, it's 2024.
And that's always been the critique, that your critique of us is, well, you guys give good speeches, you put out good tweets, but you're not wielding actual power. Now we're starting to.
My favorite news platform by far. It's not even close.
It's about a country and a principle, and that's what you and I both worked to achieve, and I'm so glad that at least half the battle has now been won.
If you want to go really hear what's going on honestly, you should tune into the Young Turks.
Thanks for doing such a great job. Please keep it up. Hang tough.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Oh, I like making you happy.
I didn't know about that.
This is a happy experience.
Awesome.
You're welcome, YouTube.
Join the Dragon Squad by becoming a YouTube channel member. Click the join button below or sign up on tyt.com/join to get access to fun emojis, a member-only chat, exclusive shop TYT designs, ad-free watching, and so many other amazing perks. Plus, you get bragging rights for being part of the coolest community on the internet and help us drive real positive change in the world. The Dragon Squad awaits, so join today.
Okay, I missed this comment in the first hour, so I have to read it now because it's hilarious and I didn't even realize what I was unwittingly doing. Asimov's prophet says, Anna, please don't use the words Trump and edging in the same sentence, thank you.
That's what I do.
Come on, come on.
No, don't do it, don't do it. I appreciate that. Minister in between says, is it also an Epstein squirrel? I don't know which story you're referring to, but probably, I'll just say probably. Don't Shoot on the Goalkeeper says, I think it's guilty to judge people for how they were born. So Tucker, are you going to stop trashing trans people? It's a good question. That is a good question. Cenk Uygur joins us. What's up, Cenk?
What's up, Casper? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm even better now that you're here because you get to deal with that.
Yes, and
He
you
loves
know
it.
me, I love dealing with it.
No, I love reading the comments, but it does stress me out. Like I like to just take a break during the breaks, you know?
Yeah, that's crazy talk, to ever taking a break. All right, I can't wait for the ADL story. I'm not sure when it is in the rundown, but yeah.
We're gonna do that after this story about the ongoing war within the conservative movement.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in a minute, we'll get to the story about now the Anti-Defamation League is attacking Jewish people.
Literally, it's insane, it's insane. But before we get to that, there's this.
Come after me, call me names, I don't care. Call me what you want, go down that rabbit hole, whatever. But when you go after my family, my Turning Point USA family, my Charlie Kirk Show family, when you go after the people that I love, and you're making hundreds and thousands of dollars every single episode, going after the people that I love because somehow they're in on this, no.
Today, Erika Kirk, the widow of Charlie Kirk, absolutely shredded Candace Owens on Fox News. Now, she didn't use Candace Owens' name, but it was pretty obvious to pretty much everyone that Owens was the person that she was addressing. Now, as you all probably know by now, Candace Owens has been investigating, the assassination of Charlie Kirk for weeks now. And meanwhile, Tucker Carlson is also weighing in on Charlie Kirk's assassination for the first time. Well, not his assassination per se, but the FBI's official narrative about the assassination. But before we get to all of those details, Cenk, your 2 cents?
Yeah, I have sympathy for both sides because I get what Erika Kirk is saying there. If we were besieged like that, I'd be bothered by it. On the other hand, are we not allowed to talk about the topic at all? So I'm curious where the boundaries are for discussing this issue, because it's not just about her, it's about the country.
It is, I totally agree with you on that. And from what I've gathered, watching Candace's show to kind of figure out what she's trying to say about her thoughts or her theory about the assassination, she hasn't pointed fingers at too many people specifically other than members of Turning Point USA. That is probably the clearest through line in her episodes, where she feels that Turning Point USA has betrayed Charlie Kirk. Okay.
Now she doesn't say Erika though.
No, she hasn't said Erika.
Yeah.
Honestly, she addressed Erika Kirk while appearing on Russell Brand's show, I believe, where she said that, look, why would you, I'm paraphrasing by the way, and we don't have that video, so please find the video for yourselves because I don't want to put words in her mouth. But she was essentially saying, look, if you put yourself in the position of CEO of Turning Point USA, that is a difficult thing to do because now you're a public figure and you're gonna have to deal with things publicly, right? Yeah. I don't know if that's what set Erika Kirk off to the point where she wanted to address this on Fox News, but she addressed it, and so here we are. Now, let's start by watching more of her appearance on Fox News, and then we'll take it from there.
My team are not machines and they're not robots. They are human. We have more death threats on our team and our side than I have ever seen. I have kidnapping threats. I have, you name it, we have it. And my poor team is exhausted. And every time they bring this back up, what are we supposed to do? Relive that trauma all over again? They watched my husband get murdered. I have no idea how I would have reacted if I was there that day. And thank the good Lord that I did not have to see that happen. But my team, they are rocked to the core. So why every single day do they have to be dragged through the mud, analyzed, hyper-analyzed?
So, how do I put this? Look, I don't know what the truth is when it comes to Charlie Kirk's assassination. What I do know is there are certain things that have come out. Like for instance, we've already talked about the weapon that was allegedly used in the assassination and how that bullet in every case would go through the neck. There'd be an exit wound, but allegedly, there wasn't an exit wound because Charlie Kirk has an amazing, super strong, healthy neck.
Yeah, that's not a thing.
Yeah,
they got to stop saying that.
So they do need to stop saying it, but they are saying that. So that's one thing. There was also that New York Times report about the Egyptian flights that weren't being investigated, or at least there was a call within the FBI to investigate it, and for whatever reason, Kash Patel freaked out about it and didn't want to investigate that. I think that's an issue, and that adds to the distrust the public has toward the FBI and our federal institutions.
I'm developing a stronger opinion on this story as we go.
But here's the other thing. I also don't want to fall down a rabbit hole and be unreasonable and convince myself or delude myself that something far more nefarious is happening than is actually happening. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, it's such a terrible thing to like try to balance this and stay grounded in reality. Because I do want the truth. I really do want the truth.
Yeah, it's funny you say that it's a terrible thing, because I think it's a great thing. But the rest of society makes us feel like it's terrible. How dare you try to find out what the truth is without smearing people? Because half of the folks say, no, you have to believe my conspiracy theory right now. Don't wait for all the evidence to come in. I'm positive, you have to say it. If you don't, you're the bad guy, right? And the other half say, don't you ever talk about it. If you even think about it, it's illegal and terrible and unacceptable. No, my position is, yeah, let's talk about it without jumping to conclusions and assuming the worst in people, etc.
Right.
But if you tell me, no, I don't need any further evidence, the government says it, or even Erika Kirk says it, sorry, that's not good enough. That's not a thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, I also understand her perspective. Look, there's a lot of stuff online about how, she's not grieving properly enough for me. Like,
no, I hate that stuff.
I hate that stuff too.
Yeah.
And
what does that mean? How do you know how to grieve? Has your husband ever been assassinated? So no, I don't accept that at all.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, Tucker Carlson has published a video about the investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination. He's talked about Charlie Kirk's assassination before, obviously, but in terms of the sleuthing and the distrust toward the FBI and whether or not the official narrative is to be believed, he never weighed in on that until today. And here's what he has to say about it.
Candace Owens, I've known a long time. I love Candace Owens. Erika Kirk, I've known since she was dating Charlie Kirk, and I love Erika Kirk. And I think these are all really, really decent people. And so it's been my desire for 3 months not to get involved in any of this. And in general, to think to myself, anybody who is earnestly searching for the truth, I'm not gonna criticize. Again, no matter what track they're on. And then the other day, I had like a 3-hour conversation with Theo Vaughn, and it was not about Charlie Kirk or anything related to it, but that topic came up. And I said, in effect, I don't trust the FBI. And that gave some people the impression that I was, accusing them of being involved in Charlie's assassination. And of course, I wasn't. Of course, we shouldn't invent theories to discredit the FBI, but it's not enough to have government officials tell us, well, this is the truth. We have a right, probably an obligation to say, well, can you prove it? And if you can't, I don't have to believe you.
And look, there's some in the audience who are like, why do you care what's happening on the right? Let them eat each other, who cares, right? I do care actually, because think about the official narrative. The official narrative is that Charlie Kirk was gunned down in cold blood by a deranged leftist. And that might be true. But it's weird that Tyler Robinson went from, being a good student, a good kid, living a great life, a conservative family, to suddenly being someone who's so driven by his ideology and his politics that he's gonna gun down someone in cold blood. I don't know, it might be true. But I don't begrudge anyone who questions the narrative, and we should know the truth, right? Because if there's a false narrative being pushed involving a politically motivated assassination that's targeting the left, honestly, like the assassin was a leftist and the narrative is targeting the left, we should want to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, so a bunch of things about Tyler Robinson. So I don't know what happened, but there are a couple of things I do know. So first off, if Tyler Robinson doesn't show up at trial, he definitely was not the killer. Okay, so that's clear. Same thing I said about Epstein. I said, I don't know what happened. I don't know if he hung himself or if somebody killed him. But if the video camera in the hallway in front of his jail cell is not working, then they killed him. Okay, and so it turns out the video camera in front of the cell was not working and the guards were off and his roommate was removed. They definitely killed him. And if you say to me, no, you have to trust the government like a moron, I say, no, that's for you. That's not for me. I actually can think. And I could put 2 and 2 together, and I don't need the government to spoon feed me horse crap, okay? So number 2 thing that I know, sorry, Anna, did you want to say something?
No, I just wanted you to clarify, but I think you made it clear that you mean if he doesn't show up to trial because he died of suicide.
Yeah, I mean, I read the other day, somebody said suicide watch. I said, no, he's not on suicide watch, is he? So I looked it up, he's on suicide watch. Oh, come on, guys, come on. No. If he commits suicide, by the way, he's in isolation where they've taken, I've also read into this, a great number of precautions to make sure that no one in that cell can commit suicide. So if somehow magically a sheet is smuggled in and the camera's off and the thing and this and the other thing, and he doesn't show up, no, then it's definitely not him, okay?
Right. Let's also just say, him being on suicide watch doesn't necessarily like prove anything.
That's right, because they do that with guys in isolation pretty regularly. So we don't know yet that part, okay? So number 2, another thing I know, are patsies sometimes used to commit a crime and they're egged on by intelligence agents, et cetera? Well, I was just talking to we had a guest on the Revolution the other night who's worked at the State Department and worked with like identifying terrorist groups, et cetera. And I asked him about it. He said, oh yeah, of course, people use patsies all the time, right? It's not that they didn't do it or they don't exist. They find the people who are vulnerable, who might be headed in that direction or have some proclivity.
Yes.
And then they encourage until they do it. And then they go, oh, well, go look at that, golly gee, right?
That does happen, yes.
So did that happen in this case? I have no idea. Has that ever happened before? Or is that some sort of conspiracy theory that's never graced this earth before? No, it's definitely happened before. So is that a possibility? I guess it's a possibility, why not? And so the why not part, Anna, always comes back to, how dare you not trust the official government narrative? And I've lived with that my whole life. If you're on the right, you actually have to deal with that less. On the left and in the middle, we're terrorized by the establishment bullies on our side who are constantly like, oh, you don't believe the official government story? What kind of monster are you? No, I've seen the government lie 2,000 times. No, I don't automatically believe them. They have to prove their case. Wait a minute, are you an American or are you not? In America, we prove our case. We don't just go, he's guilty, he's innocent, just because the government said so.
Yeah, and just going back to Candace for a minute, I also kind of understand her ire toward Turning Point because she knew the truth about Charlie Kirk's ideological evolution in the last few months of his life. And she felt that Turning Point was trying to hide that from the public, which is why she released those the text exchange in which Charlie made it clear that he was being bullied by Zionist donors and that he was mad about it and said it left him with no choice but to leave the Zionist movement, or at least advocating for it.
Can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
Yeah, so one of our contributors died under mysterious circumstances a long time ago, Michael Hastings, right? His car blew up and
he hit a tree.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna explain. So it's 4 o'clock in the morning, he's driving out of control here in LA, runs into a tree and the car explodes, okay? So if someone came to me and said, hey, there was a guy behind Michael on air doing signs, I would have been like, are you crazy? And then they show me the tape and they say, okay, there's the guy doing, I'd be like, oh, wait a minute, what is that? I'm curious, because I don't know what that is, right? If you gave me evidence A, evidence B, et cetera, but it's about our team, I wouldn't go, oh, how dare you? I'd be like, what? I wanna know, right? That's super relevant to know. And so, but whenever you ask questions, we asked Mercedes at the time and they never answered. We asked the government, they never answered. He was driving a Mercedes. Do Mercedes explode upon impact?
Or more importantly, at that time, the big question was whether his electronic system can be controlled remotely, which a lot of vehicles can be.
Yeah,
newer vehicles.
And if you don't remember, Michael Hastings also worked at Rolling Stone, and he broke the story of how Admiral McChrystal was, going against Obama's official policies and crap talking him, et cetera. And in that particular case, there was literally military guys who had told Michael, we are going to find you and we are going to kill you.
Right.
Okay. So, but the government said, don't you, you conspiracy theorist, how dare you ask a question? Of course, every Mercedes explodes upon impact. So no, I'm done trusting the government. I'm not saying they're always guilty. I'm not saying they're always doing it. No, but I care about evidence.
So finally, let's go to Candace Owens' response to Erika Kirk. First, here she is addressing Kirk's comments about the money she's making.
I just don't get how there's not someone on this very large PR team, as we're seeing these PR campaigns go out, that doesn't go, hey, maybe we should strike that. They made $40 million like 2 nights ago at Mar-a-Lago. Maybe that feels kind of a little bit like let them eat cake-ish. Oh, and we've made more than, separately from Mar-a-Lago, Turning Point USA, since Charlie was killed, just so you guys know, this is a fact, has made more than $100 million. That is separate from the $40 million they made at Mar-a-Lago the other night. So since Charlie has died, that organization has taken in $140 million. But gosh darn you people that are making hundreds of dollars every day on YouTube talking about Charlie Kirk's assassination and the BS narrative that is being fed and the very obvious psychological operation that is being employed to make you accept the BS that they are trying to sell to us.
Look, the fact of the matter is, yeah, Candace Owens is making money on her show talking about this issue, doing her investigation. But to say that Turning Point USA has not used Charlie Kirk's assassination to raise money is insane, because that has been happening. So
yeah, so look, raising money to keep the organization going, and the poor guy just got killed. I get it. I don't mind it. Everybody's got to sustain themselves, et cetera. And it's not like others don't do it. Like Mark Kelly, after Hegseth says that we're going to court-martial him or whatever, I've gotten about 28 texts from that brother. Okay.
Why is he texting you?
No, just constantly like, give me money, give me money, give me money, right?
What a good friend.
Yeah, like I know him, right? Anyways. But, and just because Candace says it doesn't mean it's true, right? And so even though we are also online, I'm going to warn you that just because somebody says something online doesn't mean it's true, right? So I will add a giant if. If it's true that they've gotten $140 million, that's not normal. That's not, hey, oh my God, a lot of people were activated and gave $5 at a time, okay? So that is big money coming in and going attaboy, right? And maybe they're going attaboy because, hey, oh my God, your husband was killed and this was an important organization, and in this time of need, we're here for you. It's entirely possible, right? And there are other possibilities, but it's not small money. That's big money, if it's true.
I personally don't care about the money they're making. I care about the substance of the arguments they're making, right?
No, but here's why the big money is relevant, Anna, because this one is from Charlie Kirk. Charlie said, we have big Jewish donors who want me to support Israel, and they will take their money away if I allow Tucker Carlson to speak again.
Right.
And he said it cost me $2 million that one time when Tucker spoke, et cetera, and now it might cost me more. So if now all of a sudden, and I don't care about anybody's religion, but whoever has whatever agenda, right, comes in and goes, okay, now that things are back on track, here's your 40 million, here's your this or that, then it becomes relevant.
Yeah, and a story I covered last week had to do with the fact that Turning Point has like their news arm, I guess, and so one of their reporters was at a Defense Department briefing, and she framed a question about Iran in a way that's meant to gin up support for attacking Iran. And I thought that was interesting because it's like straight from the Israel playbook, because Israel, of course, wants the US to go to war with Iran on its behalf.
Yeah, and okay, so here's another thing we know. Do we know that Turning Point USA was largely funded by pro-Israel groups? Yes, how do we know? Because Charlie told us.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so that's not a question. If someone says, oh, that's conspiratorial, they're trying to cover things up. Charlie's on tape saying it.
And by the way, Charlie was very loud in pushing back against the idea that the US should get dragged into a war with Iran. So that's why,
Yeah, and then Charlie was enormously pro-Israel,
yes,
right?
Yep.
But he had a line, which I was, by the way,
shocked by?
Surprised by, but he surprised us a lot in that last year.
Yeah, he did,
right?
yeah.
And so give him credit for having a line. And he said, no, I will not support going into war, this, that, and other thing, right? And so if it turns out Turning Point USA has now gone back to being pure 100% pro-Israel propaganda, is that relevant? Well, of course it's relevant.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? So guys, none of this means that somebody else did it and it wasn't Tyler Robinson, etc. It just means let's keep an open mind, let's see what happens, and asking questions is not illegitimate. Reaching conclusions without evidence is illegitimate.
I agree with you on that wholeheartedly. Now finally, here is Candace Owens addressing Erika Kirk's comment, I'm sorry. Here's Candace addressing Erika Kirk's remarks about her Turning Point USA family.
The thing that is especially absurd about that is trying to almost like, I want to be clear that Turning Point USA is my family. The Charlie Kirk show is my family. She's just expanding the wings of people that we're not allowed to critique because they're in the family. If you call them fam, you can't critique them, right? I know that this is a now $150 million in the last 3-month organization, and we employ tons of people, but you can't critique. You can't critique the fam. And I hate to say this, but I'm going to be very clear here. This is why there are many people who do not believe that women are equipped to lead companies, because what you are watching here is an unbelievably emotional response that is absent of any logic, okay?
Why you gotta go there though? Why?
So frustrating. That has nothing to do with anything. What are you doing? All right, anyways, so last couple comments from me is actually from the audience. One of our members on tyt.com wrote in, Don Dada Dragon said, don't forget they cremated the guy who shot at Trump.
Yeah,
and so the reason I read that is because it's such a good point. Because do I know that the guy who shot at Trump hit his ear is some sort of part of a plot? No, I do not know that. But is it strange that they cremated his body right away? Yeah, that's unbelievably strange.
Yeah.
So you're allowed to ask questions about unbelievably strange things, like the camera not working in front of Epstein's cell, like the cremation, like the bullet not going through the neck with that kind of rifle, and 100 other questions. If you tell me I can't ask questions, I'm gonna tell you to shove it.
Yeah. All right, we'll see how this plays out, but for now we have to take a break. When we come back, Jonathan Greenblatt, CEO of the ADL, starts attacking Jewish people.
All right, I'm gonna read a lot of these blind, of course, since I just got in. Funkin' for Fun says, unrelated, if you take the CIA at face value, you're an effing idiot. Okay, I agree with that. I still have a lot of people I know who think that it's outrageous to question the government. So, all right, anyway. And they'll say, no, it's not outrageous, but what do you mean? You don't think that JFK was killed by a single bullet? Anyway. Okay, Church of Delanosa says, Jank, preach. If a day goes by without a text from Mark Kelly, that is a good day. It doesn't matter how many times you block and report or stop to end, it never freaking stops. Help us meet our deadline tonight has been begged for 2 to 3 weeks now. F Mark Kelly. Yeah, that's the thing. Why did they make that random video about, hey, ignore, don't follow illegal orders? Largely for fundraising, and to help their campaigns and stuff. And all they've done is fundraise since then. And that's all they ever do. And it was over a non-issue when they could have made it over a very specific issue, but they were cowards and chose not to, right? And why did Cory Booker do a 25-hour filibuster about literally nothing? For fundraising and for media recognition and for fake courage. So yeah, Mark, we're not interested in giving you money. Shut up and go back and do your job. And do a video about a real issue. And by the way, that's a real issue, but when you're asked about it, you're like, oh, I don't know what you ordered. Then why'd you make the video? All right, It's just Vegas writes in on Twitch. I didn't say anything. Nope, you didn't see anything. Okay, that is the answer for a lot of folks these days. Box writes in here. I'll read these, and everybody's got their own opinion. This is YouTube members. Anyone who's taking the side of the lady who thinks France's first lady is a man is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So I hear you. But a lot of people have like super kooky ideas about some things, and then you go, but on the other hand, that's true, right? Like, so Tucker and the demon thing, I don't know what that was. That was crazy, right? On the other hand, is he right about Israel? Of course he is. And so is he right that the sky is blue and the grass is green? Yes, right? So you could be right about some things and crazy in other things. I'm sure people think I'm crazy about something, which is of course
definitely
false. Obviously, I'm right about everything.
Right.
Michael Lamount Sr. says, "Hell yeah, hour 2 with Cenk and Anna. We got the A team here, folks. Love you guys. Very proud to be a TYT member for a year now. Thank you both." Well, Michael, we're proud of having you. Thank you. We really appreciate it. It makes a big difference to us. Mattman63 says, "Anna, I may not always agree with your point of view, but you still say more that we can see eye to eye on more than any of the corporate media. They really should be ashamed of themselves." Okay.
I read that already, but I wanted to hear it again, so thank you.
Okay. What am I gonna do with her? Jennifer Smith 1503 says, "Can someone very specifically explain how Israel is our greatest ally? Serious question. Do they have anything at all for us with all of our tax dollars?" No, Jennifer, it's 100% made up. There's only two things that they say. One is general horse crap like special ally, we're part of Western civilization, we're defending you. No, you're not. You're defending yourself. You're not even defending yourself, you're attacking other people. And then the only thing that they say that's tangible is we give you intelligence all the time. Yeah, intelligence on who to attack on their behalf. They're a hilarious joke. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Fia F, Calming Footstep. What a excellent and serene title. So thanks for joining, we appreciate it. They joined with the big, beautiful join button below on YouTube, tyt.com/join also does it for you guys. Demolition Woman 75 R1D also gifted a membership, we appreciate that. And finally, real quick guys, Noble Mobile, switch your phone to them. And the most you can pay is $50 a month, unlimited data. But if you use less data than the limit, which I did, you get money back. So it's really inexpensive. And I swear to you, it took me under 10 minutes and I changed nothing. No phone, no number, nothing. It's just like it was before, but I pay way less. tyt.com/switch, tyt.com/switch. All right, Anna.
We got to talk about the ADL because they're going for it. They're now attacking Jewish people. Let's get into it.
The reality is there are segments of the far left which have been consumed by this anti-Zionist ideology. Now, we've talked on your show before, and I'm pretty out there saying anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism because it is. I also think the sky is blue. I also think that the world is not flat. The rabid anti-Zionist is just an anti-Semite by any other name. By the way, even if they come from our Jewish community, we need to recognize that as well.
All right, well, that was a choice. Pro-Israel zealots like ADL CEO Jonathan Greenblatt are having to reckon with the stone cold fact that a lot of Jewish people, including a lot of younger Jewish Americans, don't subscribe to Zionist ideology. And so Greenblatt has decided to attack them as anti-Semites.
I want to be super clear. Anti-Defamation League, I'm laughing at you.
How could you not?
Yeah, you should be registered as foreign agents because you obviously don't care about Jewish Americans. You just said it. You just said you're going to attack fellow Jews who aren't sufficiently loyal to Israel.
A foreign country.
A foreign country. You have to register as a foreign agent. You're not battling hate, you are a hate group. And now you're turning your hate towards fellow Jewish Americans. So we've got more on this, including Jonathan Greenblatt also accidentally admitting whose side he's on. So we'll get to that in a minute.
So Greenblatt sat down for an interview on the In These Times podcast, which is hosted by Rabbi Ami Hirsch. And here's his description of the criticisms of Zionism. Take a look.
Anti-Zionism is simply the latest way that anti-Jewish hate is normalized and legitimized with a pseudo-scientific or pseudo-political veneer. But if you look at the tropes and if you listen to the words and you see them for who they are, like the rabid anti-Zionist is just an anti-Semite by any other name. Anti-Zionism is not, again, dignity and equality for all people. Anti-Zionism is denial of rights for Jewish people. It's what it is.
I just want people to stop getting slaughtered, and I want the land theft to stop by Israel. That's all I want. It's that simple. I want Palestinian human beings to be treated as human beings and not slaughtered.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
So I laugh because George Orwell screaming from the grave, I told you. Jews are not Jews, Jews hate Jews. And slaughtering people is not immoral, it's moral. If you criticize a genocide, then you hate Jewish people because Jews are for genocide, but that's a trope, so you hate Jewish people more. What on God's green earth are you talking about?
That is a disgusting thing to say. Like, I just said this in the first hour of the show today. Like, do they not understand what they're doing by lumping in all Jewish people with what Israel is doing? By saying that it's anti-Semitic to be critical of the mass slaughter campaign that the Israeli government and the IDF is currently engaged in. That means like you're defaming and smearing the entire Jewish population. It's disgusting.
So again, I'll use Armenian genocide as an analogy here. If there were groups here, the ATL, the anti-Turkish League, or whatever, the pro-Turkish League, whatever, right? And they're here and they're like, okay, if you criticize the Ottoman Empire for the Armenian genocide, that means you're an anti-Turkist, and all Turkish people did it, but it didn't happen. So you hate Turkish people if you say that. Now, people, one, would say you're being absurd. And two, I would say, as a Turkish American, what are you bringing me into this for? I didn't do it. That was 100 years ago. It wasn't even the Turkish Republic, it was the Ottoman Empire. I got nothing to do with it. And it definitely was a genocide. But here, they're like, all right, it definitely is a genocide, so we can't argue on that. So what we have to do is go to our one-trick pony, where we smear anyone who is being accurate about it. But when you do that, as Anna's pointing out, for a lot of them, they're accidentally smearing fellow Jews.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But for guys like Jonathan Greenblatt who are in leadership, it's not accidental. He's a terrible person. He works for Israel. He's accidentally said it on tape before. We're gonna show it to you in a sec, okay? And he's purposely saying, let's screw over Jewish Americans. One, the ones that are good and decent and moral people who are against the genocide, let's smear them as anti-Semitic, even though they're Jewish. I mean, do you really think that's gonna work, Jonathan? Do you know how stupid you sound? You sound like the dumbest person in the country. And so, how long do you think it's gonna be before other Jewish Americans go, I've had enough of your crap, right? You pretending to speak for me when you're helping this government do these terrible things, and then you want me to pay a price for it, and you want people to attack me for it? I didn't ask them to do that, I was against it, right? And so he's purposely putting Jews in danger, not just the Jews against the genocide, but all Jews, because he's saying, now remember, this is not just the actions of a government, and governments do evil things all the time, whether they're Jewish, Muslim, Christian, etc. No, it's not that. It's all Jews. So if you don't like what Israel's doing, you should hate all Jews.
Right,
what the hell? That you're the exact opposite of what the ADL is supposed to be doing.
I mean, he is signaling that it is an inherent trait of all Jewish people to be in favor of what Israel is carrying out. And that's just not true. In fact, he himself admits that many young Jewish Americans do not agree with him. And he cites the recent mayoral election in New York City to make the case. Let's take a look.
I think we have a real challenge on our hands, because the truth is that, like what happened in our mayoral race here in New York City, like Mayor-elect Mamdani won apparently with 30% of the Jewish vote. And so there are a number of people who heard what he said and still believed in him. Mamdani's been very clear. And he kind of, like I said, casually talks about being an anti-Zionist. That is an anti-Semitic position. And 30% of New York Jews apparently voted for mayor like Mamdani. If not, they have a point of view. And he is our mayor. And like that or not, we have to deal with that.
What do you make of what he said there, Jay?
Yeah, he's like 30% of Jews voted for Mamdani because they're not bigots against Muslims like we are. We just told you he's a Muslim, so that's it. You should despise him forever and ever. But 30% of Jews in New York were awesome people, and they didn't vote based on our demagoguery. They voted on what was best for New York and for themselves. So we're now attacking those no good Jews in New York. Do you think that's what the ADL is supposed to do? Attack Jews in New York? Because they voted the wrong way? Why did they vote the wrong way? Did Mamdani say anything about Jewish people? Not at all, and you know it. And so that's why 30% of Jews didn't mind voting for him, because he never said anything anti-Semitic. But he did criticize the government of Israel, which, by the way, 98% of the planet has. Right? But of course, if you ask the Jonathan Greenblatt, everyone, literally everyone in the world's an anti-Semite and is a Jew hater, and they should all have their lives ruined, etc. Right? He's a big, stupid bully who tries to destroy people's lives here on behalf of Israel. And now he's furious at fellow Jews. He's like, why won't you be as hateful as I am? Why don't you hate the Muslims? Why don't you help me smear them? Why don't you protect the genocide? Why don't you protect Israel above America? Because they're not Israeli. Get it through your thick head. I know that you love Israel more than everything else on the planet combined, and you love to work for them and not for us. But so he'll go, oh, do a loyalty troop. No, brother, I'm not saying all Jews do that. In fact, I'm saying Jews are not doing that.
Right.
You are. You are.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm criticizing you doesn't mean I'm criticizing all Jews. Stop hiding behind human shields. Okay, and I promised you the video, so let's pull up the video that Alyssa got. So this is his famous Freudian slip if you haven't seen it before. Let's watch.
The national symbol, let's say, of Hezbollah is a rifle. That's what's on their flag. The national symbol of Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, is a sword. That's what's on their flag. The national symbol of Israel is the shield. It's the Star of David. The symbol of our people is not a weapon of war. It's an instrument of defense. The thing that most embodies our entire ethos is not harming others. It's, again, creating a better world. This is fundamental to our tradition for thousands of years. And so the idea that our national anthem would be the Hatikva, would be the hope, I should say it's the Israel's national anthem. But I think it speaks to the Jewish longing that whether you're a Jew, I don't know, in New York City or in Nairobi, Kenya, like we all have this shared sense of hope.
Oops. Our national anthem, our flag, our this, our that, in reference to everything about Israel, not America. Jonathan, I know that you and Bill Maher and so many others love Tel Aviv. One flight ticket, you could be in your homeland, your promised land, and then you could be like part of the people voting for genocide. Wouldn't that be great, Jonathan? So you're a sick person, you're a bigot. Your group is pretending to fight bigotry, but is actually promoting bigotry. Now it's promoting bigotry against fellow Jews, thereby invalidating its charter completely. You have made obvious and clear on both occasions that you and your group work for Israel. That's why you should register as a foreign agent.
I gotta give you some of these stats because Kate Patino, our producer, did an amazing job researching this, and I learned a lot, and I want you to know about these numbers as well, because look, the data on whether Jews identify as Zionists is sparse, but as we know, different people have different definitions of Zionism, so let's just kind of clear that up a little bit, because there are those who just see Zionism as Israel having a right to exist, right? But it has kind of changed it to mean something else. Others see it as like a modern day expansionary ethno-nationalist movement and project. So when we're, at least for me, and I know for you too, when we're critical of Zionism, that's what we're referring to, the latter meaning of the word. So there was one study that was done by a pro-Israel group called Boundless Israel, which found that only 31% of Jews ages 18 to 40 identify as Zionist, which is really interesting. But then the survey conductor.
All 31%, by the way, live in either Washington and are politicians or work for a nonprofit, or live in New York and are part of media. Because it make the Zionist Jewish Americans make it seem like, nope, every Jewish American is 100% Zionist. Turns out it's only 31% of them. They're just lying on behalf of everyone else.
Okay, but then the survey conductors provided respondents with their definition of Zionism, a movement that supports the Jewish people having a state in their ancestral homeland, Israel, and the number went up to 53% identifying as Zionist.
Yeah, that is nowhere near what you see on television. On television, they claim that's it. If you criticize Israel at all, you're offending all Jews, because all Jews love Israel, all Jews are Zionists, all Jews are this or all Jews are that. And they're like, and remember, don't make generalizations about Jews. I didn't, you did.
Yeah.
Right?
So there's a lot of really interesting data. I'll go to one more graphic here. So when it comes to US support for Israel, younger Jewish Americans have definitely broken from older individuals or their older counterparts. Let's take a quick look at this. So 54% of Jewish Americans ages 65 and older say that the US should play a major diplomatic role in resolving the war. That's compared with 33% of those ages 18 to 34. Older Jews are also more likely to favor the US providing military aid to Israel to help in its war against Hamas. 82% of those 50 and older versus 61% of those 18 to 34.
So last two things here. So there's no equivalent word of Zionist from my background, and I use my background just so like I'm not biased about it, right? So in this case, are there Turkish nationalists who believe that Turkey should be larger than it is today? Of course, there is in almost every country, right? So do those nationalists want to occupy and take northern Syria? They probably do. I don't know their inner workings, right? Now, if I said, if you criticize Turkish nationalists trying to take northern Syria, that means you hate all Turks. That would be maniacal, right? I don't believe that Turkey should take northern Syria. That is a political position. It is not about my religion, it's not about my ethnicity, it's not about my race, it's a political position. Zionism is by definition a political position, and it's like saying, well, if you're not Republican, then you must be an anti-Semite. That doesn't make any sense at all, okay? So, all right, now finally, so of course, for a lot of these guys, Nick Fuentes is the worst of the worst, and he does say things that certainly a lot of people think are anti-Semitic, and for me, cross a line, okay? And so to me, a lot of the things that he says is not that close, especially when he talks about a white ethno-state or a Christian ethno-state, and people go, that is, see, we told you. Rabid, racist, totally unacceptable. No one should ever talk to him because he's for an ethno-state based on a religion, like a Christian. Oh, wait a minute. Zionism is an ethno-state based on a religion, saying that we should form a nation where we center only Jewish people. We allow Muslims to exist, but they have to be a minority, an oppressed minority. They can never be the majority. They can never have control. Ethno-states are awesome when Israel does it, but if anyone else dares suggest an ethno-state, well, then you're the most racist, evil person on earth. Oops.
When we come back from the break, one final thing I want to talk to you about, Cenk, and it's a conversation about political corruption with Theo Von and Tucker Carlson.
Yummy for my tummy.
We'll be right back.
All right, back on social break here. Let's go to YouTube members. Shan 11 says, I called my mom who went to a Christian college. If the New Testament says anything about supporting Jewish Israel, she agrees with me that it does not. Guys, the Israel that they talk about in the Bible has absolutely nothing to do with the current state of Israel. That's the government that's the Israeli government hijacking the Bible to use it as a propaganda vehicle. So there's no, I don't know if you know that the Canaanites are not in Canada. It's not a thing.
What?
Like, my point is the Philistines are not the current people, like are not the government of the Palestinian Authority, right? So it's just propaganda, utter propaganda. Did you do the 1,000 pastor story, Anna, today?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so that Israel literally pays American pastors, gives them an all expense paid trip, and does all this thing and go, now lie to everyone that the Bible says they're for the government of Israel. And they're like, yes, sir, absolutely, sir, where's my money? Right? Those scumbag lying evangelical pastors. So now there's a revolt within the Christian movement, and they're not listening to those guys, and they realize that they're hucksters now, and that's a wonderful thing. Original Prop says, historically, whenever war and oppression arises, religion is involved. Perhaps if religion stopped pretending to be right about everything, we could find peace. So look, I get in a lot of trouble over that because I'm an atheist, and I think that if there was no religion, okay, then would we find other ways to get into conflict? Yes, but would we have some less conflict than we do today? Of course we would. So there's no difference between the Israelis and the Palestinians. They're incredibly similar. I mean, I know the Israelis are more European, but they're nearly identical otherwise, right? And so the only reason that they are told to hate each other is, oh, that one is Jewish, that one is Muslim. Oh, you should hate them because God wants you to hate the other person. If God actually does want you to hate the other person, is he really God? And is he really a good guy? Anyway, I don't want to get into religion because it'll get me in trouble, but come on, guys, come on. Really, God wants you to hate other people even though he created them? Who's stupid enough to believe that? Unfortunately, tons and tons of people. Anyway, Gargoyle Dragon says, Greenblatt, we didn't let our taxes benefit you and we actively use it for murder. Why did they vote against our candidate? He says, is he serious? Yeah, he's definitely serious. He thinks if America owes Israel, and America should be serving Israel at all times. And if you don't, he's gonna try to ruin your life. And so Mattman63 says, Greenblatt is striving for his inner Stephen Miller. Yep. And my name is Andrew says, the majority of weapons used to ethnically cleanse 120,000 Armenians weeks prior to October 7th came from Israel too. And that's referring to the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict. And yes, that came from Israel and they didn't mind it at all. All right, back on TYT, Cenk Anna, Michael Jones, 1763, and the Menace won. Ooh, we got the Menace on our side now, watch out. Casper.
You're gonna love this conversation, Cenk. Let's get into it.
The higher ups are not working for us anymore. They're not working with us. And that's what I think has become the most evident in the past year, especially, is that people are like, oh, no matter who we elect, on which side, whatever it is, it's all this sort of shell game.
If I was as corrupt as Dan Crenshaw, you really think they would hassle me?
Dan Crenshaw, the guy from Texas?
Yeah.
Is he corrupt?
Well, on the most deep, on a moral level, he's completely corrupt. I mean, he takes orders from his donors to do things that have nothing to do with the welfare of his voters.
It's almost as if Theo Von and Tucker Carlson scripted this portion of their discussion for Cenk Uygur, who loves this topic. And the topic, of course, has to do with government corruption. Before we get to what Tucker had to say, Cenk, your 2 cents?
Yeah, look, we do the Young Turks 6 to 8 o'clock every day, right here on YouTube and every other platform. And at 8 o'clock, I do a show called The Revolution. And what's the point of that? End corruption, get our government back. That's not my favorite issue. Honestly, it's the only issue, because until you solve that, you won't be able to solve any other issue, because they're not working for us, they're working for the donors. And seeing Theo Von Tucker Carlson talk about it, although I hear that they're both canceled because at some point somebody talked to Fuentes. Anyway, but nevertheless, somehow this conversation happened. When I see them talking about that, I'm like, yes, left, right, center, great awakening. Let's realize this is all theater and the politicians are all crooks.
Exactly, and this is an issue that impacts every political group at any movement, because when you have a small group of incredibly wealthy people throwing their money around to buy our politicians, well, the rest of us have a lot less say in our political system and the decisions our politicians make. In fact, here's Tucker Carlson explaining exactly what I mean.
It's the deal that we all make with ourselves to get what we want. Like, I want to be powerful. I want to get reelected. I want to get rich. I want to bang that girl. And you make these compromises with yourself in which you consciously decide to be dishonest. In order to get elected, I have to do the following things. I have to basically subvert democracy by carrying water for a tiny group of people against the interests of my actual voters. Like, that itself is a sin, it's a crime, but it's so ubiquitous you don't even notice it. It's deals like that. I'm gonna take money from a foreign lobby that somehow isn't registered as a foreign lobby or whatever. I'll support this thing that I think is probably pretty wrong, but I'm gonna do it because I have to. It's those kind of moral compromises that wind up making people slaves. And that's what they are, they're slaves. We have hundreds of slaves, otherwise known as members of Congress. And what are they slaves to? Evil. Because they've made these compromises in order to get what they think is the prize, which is re-election.
I had never heard the argument framed in the way that you just heard Tucker Carlson frame it, but I could not agree more. You are a slave if you're willing to take money from donors to do as they say, and you're not really a free person who is guided by your own morals, your values, your principles. There is nothing more liberating than being free to speak your mind, to advocate for the causes you actually genuinely care about. And you can just tell when someone is a free person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so look, he just uses slightly different words than I do, and maybe they're harsher, but I say servants, he says slaves. You've seen me refer to them as waiters and waitresses and servants for the donor class. And I have a spectacular example for you guys in a second. He says evil, I say corrupt, I say crooks, but it's the same idea, guys. So the spectacular example is one I've told many times on the Young Turks, but also is in my book, Justice is Coming. Ted Cruz had his wife insulted, of course, in 2016 by Donald Trump when they were running in the primary. And then they go to the convention. Ted Cruz does not endorse Donald Trump in his speech. And that's him being a tough guy, going, oh yeah? Well, you said this about my family and I'm not gonna endorse you, okay? So then he goes up to the suite in the big stadium they're having it in. That's his top donor, and those are the Mercers, and they are Wall Street bankers. Robert and Rebecca, Rebecca's the daughter. So they have given Ted Cruz in that primary $13 million. So when he goes up there, he thinks, oh, I'm gonna be feted, and these are, I'm here, master, right? And they slammed a door in his face, and they say, no, now our guy is Trump because he won. He's gonna give us the tax cuts. He's gonna give us everything we wanted. So shut up if you ever want another dollar and go back and grovel to Donald Trump. And within the week, Ted Cruz is phone banking for Donald Trump and making calls, will you please vote for Donald Trump?
Oh, it's the best photo ever.
Okay, and why is that? That's because he's a servant of the Mercers.
Yep.
Ted Cruz actually has no power. That's why when he was talking to Tucker Carlson, he said, when I was elected to serve Israel. And he literally said that. Why? Because Israeli donors are just part of his donor class. The Mercers are different, right? And so the Israeli donors told him, you are to serve Israel, you servant. And he took that very literally. So all these guys that are politicians, the mainstream media makes it seem like you should have a lot of respect for them. Oh my God, they have a status, they're a senator, right? No, they're actually the lowest people in the country. You should have no respect for them at all. They're the people who raised their hand and said, I will be a servant to the donor class, screw over my own voters, lie to them, and then secretly work for the rich and powerful, rig the rules in their behalf so your wages are lower, your housing prices are higher, your drug prices are higher, and we serve different countries and different companies. Yeah. So you can call them slaves, you can call them servants, but they have no real power. The real power is in the donors And that's what the media and the politicians desperately don't want you to find out.
I slightly disagree, and the only area where I disagree is that there have been instances in which the people overwhelmingly disagreed with what the donors wanted. I mean, we just saw that happen with Kamala Harris. She raised so much money in the election in such a short period of time. She did outraise Donald Trump, that's for sure. But it didn't help her in the end. Because if you have a campaign that doesn't actually offer voters something to vote in favor of, well, there are gonna be ramifications to that, right? Another example, by the way, is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who didn't take corporate PAC money, but she was one of the biggest fundraisers in Congress when it came to small dollar donors. And I do think that it's because, regardless of whether you agree with her politics or not, she was speaking to the issues that people in her district cared about.
But Anna, I don't think that's an exception. I think that proves the case. So Kamala Harris's donors told her, you are not to defy Israel even 1 inch, even though 90% of your voters and a great percentage of the American voters are against what Israel's doing. So we want you to hurt your chances of winning. And she said, yeah, I care less about winning and more about my donors because I'm a servant.
The point that I'm trying to make is, if voters are paying attention, they do have the ultimate power, because why are they taking the donations anyway? Or why are they taking the bribes anyway? They're taking it because they think, I need this money in order to win the election.
So chapter 4 of my book, Justice Coming, is exactly about this, how the Democratic Party forgot the means and the ends, right? And they originally started taking corporate money, and I explained the whole history of it, because they thought, well, we got to keep up with the Republicans, that way we could win and do our agenda. And through the decades, they forgot what their agenda was, and their agenda became just serving the donors, even if it cost them elections. They got so deranged and detached from reality, and they so owned the servant role that they forgot that the whole point was to win elections and do the agenda. So now all they ever do is serve the donors, and they will walk off a cliff for them. They will lose elections just to make the donors happy. Because guys, that's what they were selected for. The donors weren't looking for incredibly bright people that are strong, independent leaders. They were looking for the very worst of us, the people who could be cowed into doing exactly what they are ordered because they're empty vessels. So, and if you see me criticizing the Democrats for that, which you've seen me do for 20 years, remember, that's the entirety of the Republican Party. And you just saw Tucker Carlson being honest about it there. He's attacking Dan Crenshaw, who's a Republican from Texas. And that's why people talk about the uniparty, because it doesn't really matter if you're a corporate Democrat or a corporate Republican. They've been agreeing for the last 40 years, tax cuts for the rich, deregulate corporations, give everything to the powerful and to the donor class, and never anything to the American people. And the only reason why not every American realizes that is because traditional media, legacy media came in and told you, no, these are adversaries and they really disagree. But when they get together for bipartisanship and they give another corporate tax cuts, oh, that's so great. That means they're moderates and serving the American people. And then you poll the issue that they agreed on, and it polls at 16%, right? They're not serving the American people at all, and neither is national media. All of this is an effort to trick you into giving your money to the politicians, to the government, and then the politicians then distributing it, not to people who need it, not to the Americans, but to the donor class. It is one glorified, gigantic robbery. And the last part of it is, and we talk about this on the Young Turks all the time, the culture wars is a distraction so you don't notice the robbery. Oh, hey guys, fight over there on trans issues and this issue and that issue, but don't look there where the tax cuts are and the deregulation is and the mergers are and the limiting of capitalism where we're not allowed to negotiate drug prices, the bankers robbing you blind 24/7, right? That's the job of the media. They're the getaway car, okay? So I'd love to see right, left, and center agreeing to it. We've been standing a post here for 20 years, waiting for this cavalry. And I love that the cavalry's here. All right, speaking of which, we do a show called The Revolution. It's gonna start right now. So we'll take a quick break here. When I come back, we're gonna do a town hall style. This is how it began with Operation Hope. So you're gonna see some of the Operation Hope regulars, and you can ask me a question too if you join through tyt.com/hope. You join the Zoom that way and be part of the revolution tonight.
And thank you to the viewer who sent me a beautiful photo of their cat. It did cheer me up and I loved it. I don't have the thing in front of me right now, but I saw it and thank you.
All right, guys, we'll see you in a minute.